Hi Mama, you're listening to the Mama podcast. It's Sumaya here, the co-founder of Mama Emmy app. Mama Emmy is the first app to exclusively connect mothers across the Middle East, connect with like-minded mamas and create lifelong friendships. At Mama, we are all about connecting mamas to empower women. So let's join together and make this mission a reality. Today, we're talking all about colic and tummy aches for babies. I'm joined by the wonderful Pranjul, who's a newborn care coach and infant childbirth educator. Pranjul has so much information to share, so let's get stuck in. Hi Pranjul, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to talk to you, and we're going to talk all about colic. So much to learn about for me, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Samaya. Thank you for having me here. My pleasure.
So Pranjul, if we could start off with where you did your education, what led you into this early child education and pregnant or helping pregnant women, that would be amazing. Just to give us a bit of give me and the listeners a bit of a background of what led you to where you are now.
So I had quite an interesting journey. By education, I'm an electronics and communications engineer. So that's how I started my career, and I worked, in an engineering firm, for 2 years, and as a communications engineer, and that was back in India. And then I took a break. When I was pregnant, I took a break. I wanted to, bring up my baby girl, and I didn't want to face those tough office hours of like a 11 or a 12-hour work day, because back in India, that's what a typical corporate life is, all like is like. It actually it starts early in the morning and it ends only by dinner time. So the work life balance is not pretty much there, in a lot of countries. And being from India, that's how my life was initially. But then I really didn't want to continue with that. And my husband also, we were kind of unsure whether we want to continue in India or move abroad. So I was like, I was very keen to have a change of career. And by that time my daughter was around 1.5 years of age. And I realized, like, while bringing her up, I realized how many policies and how many superstitions are there, in people's minds, even educated people's minds. Like, there are so many myths, so many superstitions, and young moms, they actually fall for that. So I spent a lot of time researching, about the science behind things, like whether it's something as simple as my child's, food, or whether I should give her some food item to eat or not, or should I hold back till she's certain age, or whether it's her poop color, or whether it's about the little illnesses she's having. What's the scientific reason behind that, and the relief strategies that many people used to suggest around me, did they make any sense? So when I did my research on all of that, I realized that there is a big gap, and that really needs to be filled. And uh, the other thing that came into the picture was that a lot of companies, a lot of there was a lot of commercialization of baby products, like, hey, use this, it would improve that, that kind of a thing. Or if your child is 2 years of age, use this product along with milk to give them extra strength, or to increase their height. So all that led me to question a lot of things. And as I researched, I saw that there was really scope of educating my peers, and scope of telling them about the logical and scientific explanation, you know for a lot of things. And that's how I decided to train as a childbirth educator. I did my training with Childbirth and Postpartum Professional Association, headquartered in the US. So I did my training with them, and the training, it lasted for around 2 years, where I attended a lot of classes, a lot of workshops. I gave a couple of exams. I had a lot to read, a lot of workshops to attend. And so around 2000 and early 2016, I graduated as a childbirth educator, and we were in Europe. We were in Monaco at that time, so that's where my journey began, and that's where I started taking workshops for pregnant women, and that's how Women Beyond was born.
And so did you find, so that transition from India to Monaco obviously was during your time when you were studying. Did you find that the same challenges existed in Monaco with the women there too?
Yes, of course. I mean, I was very surprised. So I used to think that a lot of superstitions were coming, from the Indian related myths, Indian related culture. But no, like I remember my first client. She was petrified because she had a miscarriage before that, and just the morning of miscarriage, the morning she had miscarriage, she had eaten 2 teaspoons of flax seeds, and immediately after that, unfortunately, she had a miscarriage. So in her mind, she formed a notion that somehow flax seeds and miscarriage is connected. And she was a Colombian living in Monaco. So so that's when that's when I realized that yes, myths and superstitions, they exist in a lot of minds, and they are formed because of negative experiences, or certain challenges that people face. And it's really required there's always a space for a peer counselor to come in and actually tell the moms, using science and logic, that no, that's not the case, and how to look at things, in a better way.
Yeah, and so does that mean your role really entails helping moms really figure out where to get that information, or is it that people come to you with issues and problems and you help figure those out?
Yeah, so my goal is to guide moms to the correct information, to help them find the correct resources to solve, like in the sense that I often tell them that, hey, if you look at these websites, they are sort of medically verified, by doctors, or this article is written by a well-known doctor, so it will definitely have some truth to it, rather than like, obviously. So I guide them to evidence based information. That's my main aim. And there are a lot of times when new parents or pregnant women come to me with issues, like they're having fever or their child is having diarrhea. So my aim at that time is to tell them about, to guide them about making that choice, whether to go to a doctor, whether to go to an emergency, or whether to wait it out for it to subside. So I help them make that decision. And I always provide them evidence based information while making that decision. So ultimately, it's the parent's choice. I'm not equipped to make a decision for them, or to tell them what to do, but I can always help them out by using scientific information that I have access to.
What incredible, because you can guide them with the specific problem that they're having at the time, but also from that they will learn what information is more valuable than other information, I guess. So it's a learning curve for them as well, because in the future they would be able to draw on that knowledge and make decisions that are a bit more well informed.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they know that, okay, if suppose if a newborn baby is having fever, so they know that I need to look out for these many warning signs, and if any of these warning signs exist, then I know that, then I tell them that you must know that going to a medical professional is important. But if those warning signs don't exist, you can wait a couple of hours and see how things goes. So it's like basically giving them the confidence to actually tide across that situation. And that confidence actually many a times only a peer counselor or an educator can give, because no nurse or no doctor has the time to actually get into depth. Like if the baby has just a very slight fever, say 99.8, and the mother is freaking out, I think no doctor or no nurse might entertain her in many countries. It's that when an educator can actually come and sort of like give her the confidence and kind of calm her down, that by showing her evidence.
Yeah, and that makes sense because, doctors and nurses, I guess for them, this is like something they deal with all the time. So they don't realize sometimes the emotional aspect that the mom is going through, but you really do, you would have the time and you'd be able to accommodate that kind of situation where you can actually talk about it and go through the mom's concerns or the dad's concerns and actually talk about that in detail, which is really interesting. And I mean, we chose the topic of colic as our topic of discussion today because it's such a big topic and we hear about it so much, especially when the child is quite young. So I think it'd be great if you could just maybe briefly describe what colic is. And because I know this may be a personal experience, but sometimes what happens is people talk about colic and it may not actually be colic. And so there's so many different people use that term for so many different things.
Yeah, exactly. So I have noticed that anytime a baby cries, it has become a common lingo to say my baby is having colic. So anytime the baby is crying, the parents they comment that, oh, my baby is having a colicky day, or oh, my baby has colic. Or most interesting is when their baby is like 1.5 or 2 years old and the parent is like, oh, my baby still has colic. So that's quite interesting and incorrect, I would say, because colic is not the other name of a baby crying. It's something that is completely different. So colic happens when a baby that is around 2 to 3 weeks of age till around 4 to 5 months of age, in between that age group, cries for more than 3 hours almost every day, and this pattern continues for more than 3 weeks. So if the baby is crying 3 to 4 times a week, more than 3 hours every day on those days, and this pattern is continuing week after week after week since the last 3 weeks at least, then only we can say that yes, the baby is definitely having colic, is having colic. And if you suspect that your baby is having colic, and the signs of the colic are that the baby will cry in very high pitch volume, it would almost be like shrieking. The crying is almost like shrieking away. And if you feel that, and nothing you do can comfort the baby easily, you really can't figure out why the baby is crying, because physically you can't make out anything that is wrong with the baby, but the baby is crying for hours at end. So if this is happening to your baby, the first thing you should be doing is visiting a pediatrician to understand that this is colic or something like an ear infection or some kind of internal infection or injury that is causing the baby to be so distressed. So of course, it always helps to get it verified from a pediatrician that this truly is colic. But please keep in mind that colic usually disappears by the time the child is around 4 months of age. So by 4 months of age, 80 to 90% of the babies are cured, from this temporary health condition called colic. By 5 months of age, after 5 months of age, it's rare for a baby to suffer from colic. So it's important to keep the age group in mind while when saying that, hey, my child is suffering from colic. Also, many parents, they get a newborn home from the hospital. The first few days are kind of tough because the baby is learning how to feed. The baby might be, a little uncomfortable. The parents are learning. So during that time, if the baby is crying a lot, then also many parents jump to the conclusion that, oh, my 6-day-old baby is having colic. No, it's too early for us to say. Maybe it is colic, but it's too early for us to say that it's colic. So until the baby is around 3 weeks of age, it's hard to it's hard for us to guess whether it's colic or not.
And when you say 3 hours, do you mean 3 hours continuously or 3 hours in the day as a total sum?
That's the main characteristic. It's almost continuously. It's continuous crying. So you really can't miss out on that. It's like continuous crying for no apparent reason, and nothing, helps the baby calm down easily.
That's really interesting because, 3 hours is a really long time of crying,
Yes.
right? Like having a child cry for that amount of time must be quite challenging for the parents.
Yeah, it is.
Of course, for
it
the
is
child
quite
too, but for the parents as well, right? Not really knowing what's
yes.
going on. And so, are there sort of any real strategies or things in place that can help resolve or improve colic?
So, before learning what are the strategies, it's important to learn what causes it. And unfortunately, we cannot learn what causes it because even the doctors, their opinions are completely different on what causes it. So there are multiple theories on what could be causing this very temporary yet stressful health condition. So some doctors feel that this has something to do with the intestines of the baby. Some doctors feel that some extra growth of healthy bacteria causes this condition. Some doctors feel that, the baby's digestion system is growing, improving, maturing, and that causes colic. So, there is a group of doctors that feel that colic is somehow related to the baby's digestive system, whereas the other set of doctors feel that colic is because of emotional reasons. Like sometimes some babies are a little more sensitive than the others, and those babies, when they hear a lot of noise or sounds in the background, or they see a lot of faces, they really get overwhelmed, and colic is a way for them to get some sort of relief. Like by the time the afternoon rolls in, they are like, I have had it enough, and they cry it out to kind of, because of that overstimulation they have had during the day. So there are two sets of theories, and it's amazing that I have met parents whose babies suffer from colic, and I have actually had parents who swore that overstimulation was the reason that was causing colic, and there are many parents who say that their child's digestion issues was the one that was causing colic. So it's really confusing, but there seems to be like these two main groups. And the other characteristic of colic that is truly unique is that colic usually strikes at the same time every day. So a colicky baby would usually start crying around the same time in the afternoon or in the evening, and usually that time is afternoons or evenings or towards the night time. So that kind of leads many doctors to further believe that yes, it has something to do with overstimulation, that since the start of the day, the child is totally overstimulated. But the real reason, still till date, no doctor knows.
So I guess if you did, if your child was diagnosed with colic, then you could potentially try both avenues in terms of a relief strategy.
Yes. So when it comes to relief strategies, I basically trained as a newborn care coach, and I trained as an infant massage instructor. And I trained in a lot of colic relief strategies. And my favorite strategy, my favorite advice to parents would be to use a lot of massage to help calm the colicky baby down. Now, massage has two benefits. A, it's very relaxing, as we all know, because when someone is massaging us, there is a release of a lot of good hormones in our body and in the baby's bodies. So it's oxytocins, endorphins being released, which obviously helps calm babies down. The other advantage of massage is that when a baby is crying a lot, the baby ends up swallowing a lot of air, and that may cause gas in the baby. So, colicky babies are usually gassy too. Because of excessive crying, they end up swallowing the excess air. So when we do massage on an infant, it actually helps release excessive gas, and that I think is a good strategy when dealing with colic. And another strategy that I always advise is that when a baby is crying because of colic, and you are sure that there is nothing like physically or majorly wrong with the baby, but the baby is just going on crying and you really can't figure the reason out, it's important for parents to realize that it happens. It will not harm the baby permanently, and the parents need to be calm themselves, because babies at the end of the day, they imitate the parents. So if the parent starts panicking, starts crying, and in some parents even in anger start shaking the baby, which is very, very harmful for the baby. So it's important for parents to remain relaxed, remain cool, and remain calm, and know that this is just a phase and it will pass away really, really soon. So so these are my top strategies for dealing with colic.
Yeah, and I think remaining calm is obviously must be so challenging when your child is crying for so long. So just from my personal experience, my daughter actually has a cow's milk allergy. And we didn't know that until she was around 8 or 9 months old. So we had a lot of crying sessions when she was younger. It would never last 3 hours. But one thing that I can say is it's okay to put your baby down for a minute or two just to have a breather. Do you know, I think sometimes like we really sort of focus on trying to get the baby to calm down, but for us to remain calm, it may mean that you have to put the baby down, step out of the situation, have a minute, have a couple of minutes. And for me, my husband travels a lot for work, so it wasn't always that he was around to take over. And that might mean in some situations, it may mean that I had to put her down for a minute, walk away, just have a breather, and then go back in. And I think that's important to remember, because when you're in the thick of it, it's really quite challenging sometimes. And my daughter never cried for that amount of time, but it is, even when she was crying for 45 minutes, an hour, it was still quite challenging.
Absolutely. And especially, if you yourself are calm and the environment around you is quite, calm, with no additional noise coming in. Many a times that works on colicky babies, because again, as I said before, the theory is that it's the overstimulation that is causing them, to cry so much. So if you dim the lights, if you reduce any additional extra noise coming in, or maybe switch on some white noise, some babies tend to like it, and you yourself are breathing very calmly and very deeply, so eventually the baby will calm down with you.
And so the colic drops is something that you see everywhere, right? On every kind of shop floor, like where there's baby products, there's always colic drops.
Yes.
So what are the thoughts on colic drops, and do they work?
So, there are a variety of colic drops, and sometimes, there are gas drops, like to reduce the gas. There are medicines to reduce gas, which are being sold as for colic as well. And there are sometimes bright water, which is being sold as something to help relieve colic. So, as per my information till date, there is no medical research that proves that these drops work. And it's important to know that they are just an alternative therapy. So nobody can say for sure that they work. And sometimes if the baby gets a lot of gas while crying, and the baby is passing gas while crying, and you can see hard pockets of air in the baby's stomach, and you know that, okay, the baby is colicky as well as gassy, And if your pediatrician refers, some kind of anti-gas medicine, they sometimes work, and parents feel that, hey, these drops really work, but that's not really the solution to the bigger problem. It just solved one of the symptoms, that was gas. When it comes to gripe water and other herbal colic medicines, it's important to keep in mind that any medicine that you're giving to your newborn must be vetted by a pediatrician, must have been recommended by a pediatrician. Otherwise it could be harmful for your little one's tiny digestive system. A lot of time, we say, oh, it's okay to give some medicine to a newborn because it's herbal. But please keep in mind that these herbs are actually, they are very potent. Herbs are not something that have zero side effects. Even herbs have side effects. And unfortunately, a lot of parents, in their in their frustration, they end up overfeeding the child those herbal medicines, which is again wrong, because the babies, they are so tiny that overfeeding any herbal medicine can be harmful for the babies too. So always only go for medically recommended medicines, and always stay away from medicines that have alcohol or sugar in them. Because especially in the 70s and 80s, there were a lot of gripe water brands that had alcohol and sugar in them, and when you fed them to the baby, obviously the baby enjoyed the taste because of the sugar and fell instantly asleep. And the parents, they felt victorious that, hey, this gripe water really works, but it was working because of the alcohol and sugar content, which is really harmful for the baby. So always check the ingredients. It shouldn't have those two things. And always, if your doctor asks you to take it, then only take it. Otherwise, no.
That's really interesting, because like my mom's generation, my mom and my aunts who are of that generation sort of swear by gripe water. But that's probably why, because it was probably filled with tons of sugar and alcohol, and we were just sort of fast asleep because they gave us some gripe water.
I have still seen some gripe water brands that have alcohol and sugar.
So just be aware. Sugar. So read the label, I guess.
Read the label all the time, So
that's really interesting, because I mean, colic is that's a very specific, this is what colic is and this is how to identify it. But there are so many other conditions that give similar symptoms.
Exactly.
Like, for example, my daughter was initially diagnosed, or they were sort of suspecting that she may be colic because of the sort of the time that she would cry and the length that she would cry. But there were other symptoms that sort of drew them away from the fact that it was colic, and it wasn't colic. And it was quite a long time. So I breastfed for a while, and it's not until we introduced formula that we realized that she actually had something more specific to the actual cow's milk. Mm-hmm. And I'm not dairy free, so in my diet there was always some element of dairy, and it took a long time to eliminate and get to that point. But there was a time when we would speak to the doctors, and the doctors would sort of talk about this potential that she was colic or she had colic. So there are so many other conditions that give or mimic colic, right?
Yeah, so unfortunately, till now, we don't know the exact cause of colic. And so we are still very confused. And that's why there are a lot of moms who claim that, when they eliminated dairy or they eliminated certain gassy food products from their diet, their baby calmed down. So, we have to kind of take that into account. So if you really suspect, and especially if you have a strong family history of any kind of food allergy, then it makes sense to eliminate certain food products from your diet to see if that is causing your baby's colic to go away or not. So dairy being one of it, because the dairy proteins can actually seep in to the breast milk via blood. So there are a lot of foods that really don't impact the breast milk, but certain foods like dairy, like alcohol, like caffeine, they do impact the breast milk. And especially for babies who are who have, say, dairy intolerance or allergies related to dairy products. So if you suspect that, it won't harm to just give it a try, uh, and see what works for you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I wish I'd known that earlier, because I would have eliminated dairy to just see what would happen. And it would have made, I'm sure, like, my daughter would have been more comfortable, and it would have made life a little bit easier, because she wouldn't have been crying for as long. But, you know, you learn these things as you go along. And I'm sure, like, every mother can relate to the fact that, you know, there's so much learning, and especially in those early months, there's such a steep learning curve.
Yeah, and the good news is that by 4 to 5 months of age, you know, it's over. Like it's absolutely rare to see a 6-month-old baby suffering from colic. It doesn't happen. So it's a very, very short period of time, you know, of
And so
misery for
is
parents.
it instant? Does it just happen, like, you know, they kind of go to 5 months or 6 months, and it just kind of, the crying just stops?
Yeah, it does. It happens like that. But in fact, by 3 to 4 months of age, most babies, they start getting normal, and it kind of, it reduces and then stops.
It must be such a lovely feeling for a mom who's dealing with a colic baby. Do you know, the day that they wake up and the child just sort of stops crying or doesn't cry as much, because obviously they still cry, but it's not.
Yeah. And whatever they are doing at that point of time, whether they have cut out dairy or they are giving some bright water or whether they are massaging it, they all say that, okay, that thing worked. But if you go through, if you go to to what doctors say, certain things are proven to work, massage being one of them, being in a calm environment being one of them.
And so
So these things will definitely work.
you touched on massage quite a few times there, and obviously baby massage is very particular, and there's like a technique of doing baby massage. Would you say, to, even if the child isn't suffering from colic, would you say that this is something advantageous for all babies?
Definitely. I mean, there is plenty of medical research that has happened on baby massage. And if using the correct techniques, the correct, the correct pressure, because you cannot be too harsh on babies by massaging them. And if done with, love and care, of course, baby massage is something that is useful for all babies. And there is a science behind it. Uh, our, touch is one of our most important senses. So if a baby is born without the power to see, or without hearing capability, the baby can still thrive in the world. The baby can still happily live in the world. But no human being can survive without touch. So touch is the most important sense, and it's the first sense to form in the womb. You know.
Wow.
Yeah, so there were experiments done on babies who were around 8 weeks of gestational age in the womb, and those little embryos were stroked using a little strand of human hair and on the cheeks, and the baby had a protective movement to move away from that little stroke of hair.
Oh,
So
wow. From the age of
babies,
8 weeks.
yeah, in the womb. So that's when touch develops, and touch is the last sense to leave the human body. You know, any human being can survive without eyes or ears, or if your nose gets blocked and you can't taste or smell anything, that's fine. You know, it won't end your life. But touch, it is there till our very last breath, and that is the reason why skin has been classified as an organ. In fact, it is a very, very important organ.
Isn't it like 70% of your body, or it's the largest
Exactly.
organ in the body, right?
Largest organ in the body. Skin is so important. And the only way to nourish that organ is by massage. So, you know, when you massage a baby, as I said before, a lot of good hormones are released in the baby because of, touch. And if done correctly, it can actually help get relief from a lot of common ailments, like colic being one of them, constipation, teething pain. A lot of doctors, if you go to them with that saying that my baby has teething pain, they will not give you any painkiller or something. They would just say, like, massage the gums. That's the most obvious thing. My 8-year-old recently had some teeth trouble. She's 8 years, but The dentist said, massage her gums. So that's the most obvious relief thing that we do, and it doesn't have any side effects. Uh, so uh, so that's how, from a lot of congestion, you can really get help from congestion or sinus related issues if you massage correctly, and a lot of relief from physiological strain. You can get relief from that if you massage and stretch your limbs correctly.
So there's a very
So
interesting scientific explanation to that, right? And I'm sure you probably know what it is, but it's sort of me getting geeky and sort of digging into my biology days, but it's when your C fibers are activated instead of your pain receptors, which is your A fibers, that, right?
yeah. So
Sorry
it
to bring the
and
geekiness in here, but it's just something that when you were explaining it, it just reminded me of the C fibers.
and the most important thing to remember is that see, one way of massaging is just like doing it out of instincts, like when we pat a newborn's back, in order to make them burp. That's a very basic form of massage which most parents, they automatically learn, just patting the back in order to make them burp. But then there are certain little technicalities that come into play, like when massaging a newborn's stomach to help them get relief from colic, or just for general well-being of theirs. If we massage their stomach, all human beings, their intestines, they work in a clockwise direction. Like the gas and the poop material, it actually travels in a clockwise way inside a human stomach. So massaging on the stomach should always be done in a clockwise direction. If you do it in the anti-clockwise direction, it won't be that effective. So like that, every part of a baby's body has some technique associated with it. And of course, you have to be very careful not to provide any ticklish touch to the baby. At the same time, not to be very harsh on the baby, because they are very, very delicate. So that's how I coach the parents, to massage, not only for colic but for general well-being of the baby.
I think all this talk about massage has really made me realize the importance of me having a massage. So maybe once we get off this podcast recording, I might go and book myself a massage. But with your massage classes right now, they are online at the moment.
Currently, at the moment, because of the COVID thing, it is online. I mean, that's actually absolutely the safest, because I don't want to be meeting any postpartum moms and their newborn babies at this point of time. Because anyways, babies, their immunity is a lot lower than ours. And so it's just best to do it online at this point of time.
And that makes sense. And so are you still running your other classes too, where it's more information-based classes?
Yes, so that's the thing. Like when I teach a pregnant woman about childbirth education, it's mostly information based. And what I try to do is I try and bridge the gap between her and her healthcare provider. So instead of telling her, do this, do that, you should be delivering like this, not like that, I encourage her to ask the correct questions from her doctor, so that her information is up to date and she in her mind knows what she wants to do. There are some moms who have come to me with a request for elective cesarean, and it's not my job to tell her that that's risky. It's my job to tell her about the pros of her decision, about the cons of her decision, and if she wish, and since she is already visiting a doctor, what correct questions, what kind of questions she should be asking the doctor, so that her own knowledge and her own decision making can improve. So that's what I do. That's how I work with pregnant moms. When it comes to newborn care, it's a bit more practical, because I tell them a lot about breastfeeding. It's again a lot of information sharing and a lot of practical tips about, what they can do. Then it's about newborn safety, like simple things like when your baby is crying, many parents, as I mentioned before, they get frustrated and they end up shaking the baby, that what's wrong with you, stop crying, that is completely wrong. So I about car seats and everything. So I tell them about these little safety things. and about diapers, nappies, and what to expect out of a diaper rash when it happens. What are the warning signs? Because every baby, they will get a rash or they will fall ill at some point or the other. But what are the typical warning signs which really warrant a visit to the doctor? So I inform them about those situations. And of course, I teach them about baby massage. And I have also started doing baby sign language classes. So, babies, they're very intelligent and they observe everything. They pick up so much from the environment, and their brains are growing at massive speeds. But till they are around 1.5, 2, they really don't have that ability to form proper words and sentences. And that causes a lot of frustration, in parents as well as babies, because they have no other option but to cry. If they really want a particular toy and the parent is not able to give it to them, and they are not able to climb out of their crib to get it, ultimately they will start crying.
Sure.
And the parents will get frustrated and the baby will get more upset. So that's what encouraged me to study baby sign language. And it's a way of telling. We teach babies through rhymes, through poems, through a lot of fun activities, through a lot of motor sensory activities. We train them to sign for certain objects which they use in their daily lives, and sign for certain activities also, like all done after a meal or more after a meal. So when we teach babies that, it really reduces their frustration and it really helps the parents too.
So it's really a form of communication between mom and child.
Full-fledged
parent and child.
communication. Yes, full-fledged communication, and it really, really helps. Imagine a baby who's just crying, and the parents are like, "What's wrong?" And if the baby can just point to the ears and make the sign of hurt, that means the ear is hurting, and that's why the baby is crying. The life becomes really simple. The parent knows that what to say to the doctor, or what first aid to give to the baby. So
And that
it really works. It really, really works. I have a very favorite story, to share. So there was this mom and a child. They used to go swimming every summer afternoon, and they used to go to their neighborhood pool to swim. And the baby used to be in that little pool, and every time the mom took the baby out of the pool, when it was time to go home, the baby, as soon as the baby got out of the pool and was kept out of the pool, the baby used to start crying. So the mother concluded that my baby really loves swimming, and every time I have to pull the baby out of the pool, a tantrum would come.
Right.
So she used to tell everyone that the baby loves swimming so much. And he was around 14 months.
Okay.
14 months of age. Yeah. So he could kind of walk with support. And so this pattern continued, and she started coming to sign language classes as well. So in the sign language classes, they were taught the very basic sign of hot.
Right.
So the baby blows, and that's the sign of hot. Then the baby, it continued, the tantrums also continued around the swimming pool. Then one day when the mom, she took the baby out of the swimming pool, held his hand to walk towards the home, the baby actually started signing hot and started blowing at his feet.
Oh, wow.
That's when the mom realized that it was not a tantrum because the baby was being pulled out of water, but actually the area around the swimming pool, it used to get very hot because of the sun. The concrete floor around the swimming pool used to really get hot. And those little, and after that, the grass continued and then the house. But the mom always wore flip-flops when pulling the baby out of the pool, but the baby was always naked feet when pulling. Didn't wear any slippers or any shoes when being pulled out of the pool. So the baby actually, the moment the little feet hit the floor, the baby used to really, the feet used to burn, and the baby used to, really cry. But there was no way the mom could guess that it's just those 5-6 steps that is causing the baby so much agony.
Oh, wow.
So it's these little things that really, we just think that, oh, the babies are just being difficult, or they are just being spoiled. I don't know, maybe they're just trying to act funny, but no, they really have their reasons.
That's incredible to think that that child or that baby was able to communicate that actually his feet were too hot. I'm actually
Yeah.
really interested by this. It's really incredible to hear.
Yeah. So
So I think this is a great place to end, Pranjul. So where's the best place
yeah.
for our listeners to find you, and how's the best place, or where's the best place to contact you?
So I have a website. It's www.wombandbeyond.info. So, or you can always drop me an email at pranjul@wombandbeyond.info. I'm also on Instagram. My handle is womb_and_beyond. So I'm quite active on social media. So it won't be hard to catch me somewhere.
I think I'll pop all of those details in the show notes. So if any of our listeners want to actually get in contact, it's really easy. They can find you in the show notes and just click the links, and they'll be able to get directly to all of those places. And I'll make sure that they're all in there. I want to thank you again for your time today. It was really informative and lovely hearing from you as well. And I'm sure we'll keep in touch, and maybe more to come.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. It was lovely, being on the show. Thank you.